The universe has always seemed too vast for us to fully comprehend, but on that fateful October morning, its immensity began to compress as if an invisible force were folding the very fabric of space-time. The astronomers at the International Lunar Observatory were the first to detect the gravitational anomalies that signaled the arrival of the HFY Vanguard. The readings were so intense that they initially suspected a malfunction in the instruments. But when the distortions began to appear in every telescope on Earth simultaneously, the terrible truth became undeniable. We were no longer alone, and our visitors did not come in peace. The first signs of the alien civilization emerged as points of light that seemed to bend the stars around them, creating impossible halos in the vacuum of space. The ships of the HFY Vanguard emerged from hyperspace like ancient predators, awakening from a millennia-long slumber, their crystalline surfaces reflecting sunlight in hypnotic patterns that resembled the scales of cosmic serpents. Each ship was the size of a small moon, their perfect geometric structures defying our understanding of space engineering, and their mere presence caused gravitational distortions that affected even Mars's orbit. Humanity watched in collective horror as the first demonstration of HFY power transformed Phobos, one of Mars's moons, into a cloud of space dust with a single shot from a weapon that seemed to violate the laws of physics. The greenish-blue pulse of energy emanating from one of the larger ships not only destroyed the moon, but appeared to erase its very existence from the fabric of space-time, leaving a void that made scientists question everything they knew about reality. The message was clear. Resistance would not only be futile, but possibly fatal for the entire human species. Earth's defense systems, designed to protect against known threats, seemed like children's toys in the face of alien technology. Nuclear missiles were diverted by force fields that seemed to predict their trajectories. Orbital lasers were absorbed by shields that transformed energy into matter, and our most advanced combat AIs were hacked and shut down before even initiating their attack routines. The technological superiority of the HFY was so absolute that it seemed more like magic than science to the eyes of Earth's military. As the main fleet of the HFY Vanguard approached Earth's orbit, scientists managed to intercept and partially translate their communications. What they discovered only heightened the terror. We were not seen as a species to be conquered or enslaved, but as an anomaly to be corrected. The HFY considered humanity's very existence a cosmic aberration, an error in the fabric of reality that needed to be erased to maintain the universal balance they so cherished. The first attempts at diplomatic communication were met with deafening silence. The HFY did not respond to radio transmissions, light signals, or even attempts at quantum communication. Their only response was to send automated probes that began systematically mapping every inch of the planet, as if cataloging a specimen before dissection. The precision and coldness with which they conducted their work served as a constant reminder that, to them, we were less than insects. We were an equation that needed solving. The initial panic gave way to a dark resignation when the first intelligence reports revealed the true extent of HFY power. Their ships were not merely war machines. They were instruments of cosmic reshaping, capable of altering the very structure of reality. Detailed observations showed that they did not travel through space. They folded it, creating shortcuts between the stars that defied our understanding of physics. Our most advanced technology seemed as primitive by comparison as a stone axe against a surgical laser. The arrival of the HFY exposed not only our technological vulnerability, but also our internal divisions. While some nations proposed immediate surrender in hopes of preserving something of humanity, others argued for a final suicidal attack with our entire nuclear arsenal. The debate became irrelevant when the first reconnaissance ships began systematically disabling our military infrastructure with a surgical precision that caused no casualties. Yet, the days that followed were marked by a surreal quiet. The great cities of the world, normally pulsating with life and activity, fell silent like tombs as people sought refuge in bunkers or tried to flee to remote areas. The skies, now dominated by alien structures that partially blocked sunlight, had an unnatural greenish glow that tinged everything with a sickly light. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath, awaiting the final blow from its cosmic tormentors. But amid the almost universal despair, small sparks of resistance began to kindle. In underground laboratories, scientists worked frantically to understand alien technology. In secret military bases, strategists developed new combat methods. And in the shadows of abandoned cities, groups of hackers and makeshift engineers began to perceive patterns in Jarkai transmissions that suggested that perhaps, just perhaps, alien supremacy was not as absolute as it seemed. Humanity was cornered, but not yet defeated, and in the coming hours, the world would discover that even the most advanced alien civilization can underestimate the power of human adaptability. The dawn brought with it a vision that would remain etched in humanity's collective memory forever. The ships of the Jarkai Vanguard hovered over the world's major metropolises like floating mountains of crystal and metal, their prismatic surfaces reflecting sunlight in hypnotic patterns that seemed to penetrate even the soul of those who beheld them. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional low hum that made the tallest buildings vibrate at a disquieting frequency, as if the very air were being compressed by the alien presence. The first demonstrations of Jarkai power were methodically calculated to shatter any hope of resistance. A single reconnaissance ship, smaller than its larger sisters, neutralized Earth's entire orbital defense system in less than 3 minutes. The most advanced military satellites were disabled with the same ease as turning off a light bulb, leaving Earth's armed forces practically blind. The surgical precision of the attack demonstrated such an absolute technological superiority that many military commanders began to question whether any form of resistance would be anything more than an elaborate suicide. Panic in the cities began silently, almost dignified, as if humanity was trying to maintain appearances in the face of its cosmic executioner. People filled their cars with supplies and attempted to flee to rural areas, creating endless traffic jams that stretched for hundreds of miles. Others entrenched themselves in makeshift bunkers, clinging to any sense of security, no matter how illusory it might be. Governments tried to maintain order, but their words of comfort sounded hollow in the face of the magnitude of the threat looming over their heads. The strategic superiority of the Jarkai revealed itself not only in their technology, but in their almost supernatural understanding of human psychology. Every movement of their forces seemed meticulously planned to maximize psychological impact, creating an atmosphere of calculated terror that paralyzed decision-making at every level of command. It was as if they were playing chess in 4 dimensions while humanity was still trying to grasp the rules of the game. The first reports of direct confrontations with Jarkai forces arrived like nightmares turned real. Entire squadrons of cutting-edge fighters were neutralized without a single shot being fired, their aircraft simply stopping in mid-air as if they had forgotten how to fly. Tanks and heavy artillery became useless when alien force fields transformed thermonuclear explosions into harmless displays of light. It was as if every military advance in human history had been anticipated, and countermeasures had been developed millennia before our first steps into space. In military bases around the world, commanders watched helplessly as their most sophisticated defense systems were methodically dismantled. The most lethal weapons ever created by humanity seemed like toys in the hands of a civilization that had mastered the very laws of physics. Intercontinental missiles were redirected back to their silos like a patient mother returning a dangerous object to a mischievous child. The humiliation of defeat was amplified by the apparent ease with which it was imposed. Attempts at mass evacuation from major cities quickly devolved into scenes of organized chaos. Authorities, realizing the futility of trying to hide from an enemy that could track every movement on the planet's surface, began to focus on maintaining order and preventing the total collapse of society. Hospitals were moved to underground facilities, supplies were rationed, and contingency plans were drawn up for a scenario that no one truly believed they could survive. The scientific community, usually a source of hope and solutions in times of crisis, found itself in a state of horrified fascination. Each new observation of Jarkai capabilities challenged decades of established knowledge about the fundamental laws of the universe. Theories that had been cornerstones of modern physics were shattered in the face of demonstrations of technology that seemed to violate reality itself. It was as if Einstein, Hawking, and all the other giants of science had merely scratched the surface of an ocean of knowledge whose depths we were just beginning to glimpse. The impact on the collective psyche of humanity was profound and immediate. Millennia-old religions entered a crisis as their leaders struggled to reconcile their doctrines with the reality of an alien civilization capable of feats once attributed only to gods. Philosophers and thinkers debated frantically the meaning of human existence in the presence of beings so superior that our very consciousness seemed a mere spark against their cosmic brilliance. The faith in human exceptionalism, nurtured over millennia of unquestioned dominance over our planet, crumbled like a sandcastle before the tide. But even in the darkest moment, when the weight of defeat seemed to crush even the most resilient souls, something began to change. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible amid the chaos and despair. Small groups of resistance began to form, not driven by hopes of victory, but by a fundamentally human stubbornness that refused to accept the inevitable. In makeshift laboratories and secret bunkers, brilliant minds began to study the patterns in the seemingly invincible behavior of the Jarkai, seeking not a weakness, but a possibility. For if history had taught humanity anything, it was that sometimes the greatest victories are born from moments of deepest despair. In an improvised bunker deep within an old salt mine, a diverse group of scientists, hackers, and engineers began to unravel the first secrets of Jarkai technology. What initially seemed like incomprehensible magic started to reveal subtle patterns, like a complex code waiting to be deciphered. The crucial breakthrough came from an unexpected source. An anthropology student who noticed similarities between the alien energy patterns and ancient mathematical fractals. It was the first glimpse that the invaders' apparent invulnerability might have vulnerabilities that only a uniquely human perspective could identify. The alien artifact captured during a suicide mission in Tokyo became the center of an accelerated technological revolution. While the Jarkai expected humans to try to replicate their technology, a task impossible with our level of development, Earth scientists took a completely different approach. Instead of trying to understand how the device worked, they began to study how it failed. Every error, every energy fluctuation, every seemingly insignificant anomaly was documented and analyzed, gradually revealing the limitations of a technology that seemed too perfect to be real. The human resistance adapted with a speed that bewildered Jarkai observers. In less than a week, groups of hackers had identified patterns in the alien communications that suggested a fundamental rigidity in their thinking. The alien civilization, despite its technological superiority, operated with an almost mathematical predictability. Their strategies, while devastatingly efficient, followed strict rules that could be anticipated by minds thinking outside established patterns. The unpredictability of humanity, initially seen as a weakness by the invaders, began to reveal itself as our greatest advantage. In the shadows of devastated cities, a new form of warfare was beginning to take shape. Improvised combat teams, mixing military veterans with teenage programmers, were developing tactics that no military manual could have predicted. Guerrilla attacks were coordinated using modified household technology to emit signals that confused alien sensors. Homemade drones, built from video game parts and controlled by esports players, managed to penetrate security perimeters that had defeated the most advanced military weapons. The line between hacker and soldier, between scientist and warrior, was beginning to blur. In a crucial moment, an accidental discovery in an underground laboratory in Bangalore changed the course of the war. A team studying the quantum behavior of particles exposed to Jarkai radiation realized that the alien technology, while incredibly advanced, was still subject to the fundamental laws of physics. More importantly, its own complexity made it vulnerable to forms of interference that simpler technologies could ignore. It was like discovering that a quantum supercomputer could be defeated by a pocket calculator, provided you knew exactly where to press. Captain Kara Zane, observing a group of hackers working on a recovered alien artifact, had an epiphany that would change the strategy of the Resistance. "We don't need to be stronger than they are," she declared in a coded transmission to all Resistance cells. "We need to be more creative, more adaptable, more human." Her words captured the essence of a truth that the Sharkai, with all their technological superiority, could not comprehend. Humanity's true strength lay not in its tools, but in its ability to constantly reinvent how to use them. The turning point came when a global network of amateur scientists, working with improvised equipment in basements and garages, began mapping the energy frequencies used by Sharkai force fields. What military experts with billions of dollars in equipment could not achieve was accomplished by a collaborative community using modified microwave technology and old TV antennas. The solution lay not in brute force or technological sophistication, but in the unique human ability to find elegant solutions to seemingly impossible problems. The first victories, though small, had a devastating psychological impact on Sharkai forces. Their commanders, accustomed to the mathematical predictability of space warfare, found themselves increasingly frustrated by the chaotic and unpredictable nature of human resistance. Every attempt to establish patterns of behavior was thwarted by seemingly random tactical changes. It was like trying to predict the next move in a game whose rules were constantly changing, a situation that the invaders' algorithmic mindset was ill-equipped to handle. The true power of human ingenuity was revealed not in grand space battles or direct confrontations, but in thousands of small victories accumulated over time. Each hacked alien device, every intercepted communication, every neutralized force field contributed to a collective knowledge that grew exponentially. Humanity was effectively creating a new science, one that blended alien technology with terrestrial innovation in ways that neither civilization could have predicted in isolation. It was a unique synthesis that could only have emerged from a species that had spent its entire history adapting to and overcoming seemingly insurmountable limitations. And so, while the Sharkai continued their relentless advance, confident in their technological superiority, they did not realize that they were inadvertently creating the conditions for their own defeat. Every new display of power, every new weapon deployed, every new defense system activated provided more data for a human resistance that was learning and evolving in real time. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invaders' arrival, the balance was beginning to subtly tilt in a new direction, driven not by the might of weapons, but by the indomitable power of human ingenuity. The transformation of humanity in the face of the Sharkai threat was unprecedented in the species' history. Within weeks, old rivalries and geopolitical conflicts were forgotten in favor of a global collaboration that defied all expectations. Scientists who once competed for funding and recognition now freely shared their discoveries through clandestine networks. Improvised laboratories in basements connected with cutting-edge research facilities, creating a global web of innovation that operated around the clock, adapting and evolving faster than any bureaucracy could keep up. The first major breakthrough came when an international team of engineers not only managed to understand but also modify a captured Sharkai weapon. The process defied conventional logic. Rather than trying to replicate the alien technology, they found ways to trick it using basic principles of quantum physics to make the device operate in ways its creators had never predicted. It was like teaching new tricks to a space dog, except this dog was capable of disintegrating mountains. News of this achievement spread through the resistance like wildfire, inspiring a wave of bold experimentation with captured alien technology. In New York, a group of survivors led by former professional gamers developed a revolutionary tactic using asteroid fields as weapons. By applying principles from real-time strategy games to actual space warfare, they managed to manipulate gravity to turn space debris into lethal projectiles against Jarkai ships. Commander Darius Reed, watching a demonstration of the system, couldn't help but smile as he saw one of the most advanced alien warships defeated by a technique inspired by computer games. "Who would have thought," he murmured, "that all those hours of gaming would finally serve a purpose?" The evolution of ground combat tactics was equally impressive. Urban guerrilla units, composed of an eclectic mix of veteran military personnel, hackers, and improvised engineers, developed methods of combat that combined cutting-edge technology with primitive cunning. Digital traps were camouflaged with techniques learned from indigenous tribes, while ultra-modern communication systems were hidden using methods dating back to World War II. It was a unique fusion of high and low tech that completely confused the Jarkai sensors, programmed to search only for signals of advanced technology. The true evolutionary leap, however, came in the form of a deeper understanding of a Jarkai psychology. Anthropologists and psychologists, working alongside artificial intelligence specialists, began to identify fundamental patterns in alien behavior that suggested a surprising cognitive rigidity. Despite their incredible technological capabilities, the Jarkai appeared incapable of true improvisation or lateral thinking. Every decision followed precise algorithms. Every response was mathematically predictable. Once you knew what to look for, this discovery completely transformed the nature of the conflict. The human resistance began to explore this limitation in increasingly creative ways. Attacks were planned not based on brute force or technological superiority, but on calculated unpredictability. Military operations were structured like artistic performances, with elements of controlled chaos deliberately introduced to confuse the alien prediction systems. A particularly successful attack in New York was coordinated using patterns based on jazz improvisation, something the Jarkai computers simply couldn't process efficiently. In the depths of underground bunkers, a new generation of warriors emerged. Young people who had grown up playing video games and programming computers found themselves strangely well prepared for this new form of warfare. Their ability to think non-linearly, to adapt strategies in real time, and to exploit seemingly perfect systems proved invaluable. War veterans learned tactics from teenagers, while renowned scientists received lessons in applied quantum physics from self-taught YouTubers. The traditional hierarchy of knowledge had been completely subverted. The process of adaptation extended beyond the battlefield. Human society as a whole was evolving in response to the existential threat. Educational systems were completely reorganized, with children learning quantum physics alongside the alphabet. Industrial production lines were reinvented to manufacture hybrid human-alien technology. Even agriculture underwent a revolution, with underground farms using Jarkai's spatial folding principles to produce food in impossible spaces. The very definition of human began to expand. The need to process and react to information at superhuman speeds led to the development of improvised neural digital interfaces. Hackers connected their brains directly to computers using modified gaming technology, while soldiers enhanced their reflexes with artificial nervous systems inspired by alien technology. It was not so much a planned evolution as it was a frantic adaptation, driven by the desperate need for survival. The most notable aspect of this transformation was its fundamentally democratic nature. There was no central plan, no single authority directing the process. It was an emergent evolution, arising from the collective actions of billions of human minds working in parallel. Each small adaptation, each new idea, each improvised solution contributed to a process of change that was reformulating the very essence of human civilization. And the Jarkai, with all their technological superiority, were beginning to realize that they had unleashed something they could no longer control. The war against the Jarkai entered a new phase when humanity began to implement strategies that no military manual could have predicted. Commander Zane, now leading a global task force of special operations, revolutionized the art of space warfare by introducing guerrilla tactics on an orbital scale. Her teams, utilizing ships modified with hybrid human-alien technology, executed lightning strikes that appeared and disappeared like ghosts on radar, leaving the Jarkai sensors in a constant state of confusion. It was as if the very vacuum of space were conspiring against the invaders. The battles that followed defied any conventional logic of combat. Teams of hackers, working in sync with combat pilots, managed to create bubbles of reality where the laws of physics seemed temporarily suspended. A particularly audacious group in Bangalore developed an algorithm that allowed them to bend the response time of Jarkai defense systems, creating crucial microseconds of vulnerability that could be exploited. It was a deadly dance of mathematics and instinct, where every move needed to be perfectly calculated, yet executed with the fluidity of improvisation. Psychological warfare emerged as one of the most effective weapons in the human arsenal. Experts in alien behavior discovered that the Jarkai, despite their incredible processing capability, were vulnerable to logical paradoxes and sensory overload. One particularly brilliant operation involved transmitting millions of contradictory signals simultaneously, creating an informational noise that literally froze the decision-making processes of enemy ships. It was like creating a computer virus made of pure cognitive confusion. The alien infrastructures, once considered impenetrable, began to show vulnerabilities when exposed to multifaceted attacks. Sabotage teams, expertise in demolition with deep knowledge of quantum physics, discovered that certain interference patterns could create blind spots in Jarkai force fields. A successful attack in their main communications base was executed by a team that included an origami expert. His theories on dimensional folding proved crucial in finding breaches in the alien defenses. Commander Darius Reed revolutionized ground tactics by introducing the concept of fractal warfare. Inspired by natural patterns, he developed combat formations that adapted and evolved in real time, like a living organism responding to its environment. His units moved in patterns that seemed chaotic to alien observers, but followed a deep logic that could only be understood through a fundamentally human perspective. It was the mathematics of nature transformed into a martial art. Human creativity manifested in the most unexpected ways during the conflict. A team of special effects artists from Hollywood, working with theoretical physicists, developed tactical holograms that not only deceived Jarkai sensors, but also created convincing illusions of entire battles. These phantom operations divided the attention of enemy forces, forcing them to waste resources, combating threats that didn't exist. It was like turning the war into an elaborate cinematic production, where the line between reality and illusion became deliberately blurred. The turning point in many crucial battles came not from technological superiority, but from pure human adaptability. A group of Hawaiian surfers, for instance, discovered they could ride the gravitational waves generated by the Jarkai ships, using this knowledge to develop navigation techniques that allowed small attack vessels to penetrate enemy defenses. It was the kind of solution that could only arise from minds accustomed to reading and responding to nature's patterns in deeply intuitive ways. Communications during battles evolved into something that resembled an improvised artistic performance rather than traditional military operations. Codes were based on obscure cultural references, inside jokes, and internet memes. Information that no alien artificial intelligence could decipher without a deep understanding of human context. A crucial message during the Battle of Mars was transmitted entirely through remixed Shakespeare quotes, combined with rap lyrics, completely confusing the enemy's interception systems. On the ground, cities transformed into tactical mazes where every corner could hide an unpleasant surprise for invading forces. Graffiti artists collaborated with nanotechnology engineers to create war art, murals that functioned as active camouflage, changing their appearance in response to alien presence. Abandoned subway systems were converted into mobile command centers. Their routes constantly altered using modified spatial displacement technology taken from the Sharkai themselves. It was as if the cities were alive, breathing and moving in sync with their defenders. The most impressive aspect of these battles was how they showcased humanity's unique ability to turn apparent weaknesses into decisive advantages. Each technological limitation forced tactical innovation, every defeat sparked a new approach, and every obstacle inspired a creative solution. Gradually, battle by battle, the Sharkai began to experience something their civilization had forgotten millennia ago: the sensation of fear. Not from human military power, but from the wild unpredictability and indomitable creativity of a species that refused to accept the limits of the possible. In the underground command center in Geneva, the air was thick with a mix of tension and determination as human resistance leaders gathered for what they all knew was their last chance. Holographic screens displayed a seemingly impossible situation. The Sharkai mothership, a structure the size of a small moon, hovered over the Earth's atmosphere like a technological sword of Damocles. The calculations were relentless, a 1 in a million chance of success. But as Lieutenant Sarah Chen observed with an ironic smile, "Since when have bad odds ever stopped us?" The plan was a masterpiece of desperate ingenuity. The gravitational pulse bomb, developed through reverse engineering of Sharkai technology, theoretically had the capability to create a localized singularity that could destabilize the mothership's containment systems. The problem was not the weapon itself, but how to deliver it. The alien force fields were practically impenetrable, and any direct approach would be detected and neutralized before it even began. That's when Ethan Briggs, a pilot known for making the impossible happen, proposed an idea so absurd that it had to work. Briggs's plan was based on a principle the Sharkai, with all their technological superiority, had never considered: using their own defenses against them. His proposal was to exploit a peculiarity of quantum physics that human scientists had discovered. Under certain specific conditions, the Sharkai force fields created microscopic blind spots that lasted fractions of a second. It was like finding a predictable pattern in chaos, something only human intuition could perceive and exploit. The preparation for the final mission became an exercise in precision and improvisation. Engineers worked tirelessly to modify a ground combat ship with hybrid technology, creating something that was part space fighter, part quantum anomaly. The ship needed not only to survive the approach, but also to dance between the blind spots of the force field with nanoscale precision. It was like trying to navigate a waterfall by slipping between the drops. Theoretically possible, but requiring a level of control that bordered on supernatural. In the hours leading up to the launch, a strange calm spread through the resistance bunkers. Musicians improvised one last symphony, blending earthly melodies with harmonies discovered in Sharkai transmissions. Programmers finalized navigation algorithms while sharing jokes about quantum physics. A Tibetan monk taught meditation techniques to fighter pilots, helping them achieve the expanded state of consciousness needed to perceive the dimensional patterns they would need to navigate. It was humanity at its purest, adaptable, resilient, and inexplicably optimistic in the face of the impossible. The moment of launch was marked by a deafening silence. Ethan Briggs, seated in the cockpit of his modified ship, made a final systems check while listening to a playlist that mixed Mozart with progressive rock, the perfect soundtrack for a dance between dimensions. The sensors showed the success probabilities flashing in red, 0.0001%. Briggs smiled, recalling the words of his old flight instructor. Probabilities are for those who never attempted the impossible. The flight itself defied any conventional description. Briggs's ship moved as if it were ignoring the laws of physics, following a pattern that seemed random but was meticulously choreographed. Every movement synchronized with the quantum fluctuations of the Sharkai force fields, exploiting gaps that existed only for fractions of picoseconds. It was a deadly dance between reality and probability, where a single mistake would mean instant destruction. But Briggs was not alone. Echoing in his mind were the voices of all humanity, guiding his instincts with a collective wisdom that transcended the individual. The critical moment came when the ship reached the delivery point. The gravitational pulse needed to be released in a specific location, at a specific moment, with a precision that challenged human understanding. It was in that moment that all simulations and calculations gave way to something more primitive and powerful, pure intuition. Briggs didn't think, he simply felt the precise moment, like a musician sensing the perfect timing in an improvised performance. The device was unleashed, and for a moment that felt like an eternity, the universe held its breath. The destruction of the Jarkai mothership was a spectacle of cosmic proportions. The singularity created by the gravitational pulse expanded like a flower of light and energy, consuming the alien structure in a vortex of distorted reality. It was like witnessing the birth of a star in reverse, a breathtaking event that would forever mark the memory of all who witnessed it. The other Jarkai ships, psychically connected to their mothership, experienced for the first time something akin to human fear. The impact of victory reverberated through the dimensions. The Jarkai, facing their first defeat in millennia, began a hasty retreat from the solar system. It was not merely a military defeat. It was a philosophical revolution. A civilization that had based its existence on mathematical perfection and technological superiority was forced to recognize that there was something more powerful in the universe. The human ability to transcend limitations through creativity, courage, and that inexplicable spark of madness that makes us unique.